Ed, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Ed, can you hear us?
Yes. Yes.
I'm not hearing him.
Can you hear me?
You can hear us. Ed, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
He can hear us, but we're not hearing him. Can you say something again, please?
Yes, Steve, can you hear me now? Steve?
Is that the one? Test.
Can you hear me now, Steve?
Now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
All right, we're ready.
All right, I will call the September 12th, 2022 meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors to order. I will make note that the board did meet in executive session where we discussed 9 legal matters. With that, we will now move into the roll call. Mr. Neese.
Mr. Altieri,
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap,
Here.
Mr. Partridge,
Here.
Mr. Russo,
Here.
Ms. Chanlis.
Here.
Your solicitor and manager are here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. We will now move down into the moment of silence. Since we are beginning the school year, I ask that we keep in our thoughts this evening all the students, faculty, and staff, not only in the Marple Newtown School District and St. Anastasia's, but of all the school districts across the Commonwealth. And with that, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll now move down to section 5.1. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. We'll now move down to public comment for agenda items only. If there's any member of the public who has any public comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Again, this is for agenda items only. Let the record reflect that there are none. We'll now move down to the minutes. 7.1, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the August 8th, 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries unanimously. I'm going to go a little bit out of order to section 9 before we get into these presentations. 9.1, to consider approving the appointment of a township engineer. I would like to make the motion that we appoint Pannoni Associates being represented by Eric P. Johnson, P.E. That is my motion.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to appoint Pannoni Associates being represented by Eric P. Johnson, P.E. as the new township engineer. Is there any board discussion? I would just like to say thank you to Stantec Engineering for their years of service to the township. And I know that all of us look forward to having Pannoni and Mr. Johnson join this township as we continue to move us forward into the 21st century. With that being said, is there any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Mr. Johnson, you can join your colleagues over there, and I will allow you to say a few words if you want. If not, we'll continue with the meeting because I know I just put you on the spot with that.
Well, thank you.
$90.
Okay. I'll leave that up to them. I would just like to thank you for the opportunity to serve as the engineer. I look forward to it, and we'll get to it, I guess.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. We'll now move back up to presentations. 8.1, the new Birdtown sign by our EAC extraordinaire, Ms. Janet Krevenas.
My name is Janet Krevenas. I live at 23 Paper Mill Road in Newtown Square. I've been there now for 39 years. It is my pleasure to be standing before you as a member of the Environmental Advisory Council and chair of our Birdtown, and to thank you again for passing the resolution on February the 28th that supports the goal of Birdtown, Pennsylvania. With this action, our municipality is dedicated to furthering our Birdtown habitat initiatives as part of our commitment to create a healthier, more sustainable environment for birds, wildlife, and citizens. Our Birdtown, Pennsylvania program provides tools for us to engage, educate, and empower our residents, schools, and businesses to make more ecologically friendly decisions and promotes a culture of conservation where everyone can be a steward of nature in their own backyard and beyond. As a symbol of our recommitment, new signs will appear on our streets, and a fresh and bold logo has been created for the program, and we help to identify our community as one that aims for greater conservation and stewardship of natural resources. I also am happy to present to you a certificate that can be placed in the township where you place these to show that we have made a commitment to become a bird town in 2022. And now it is my pleasure to reveal the sign that we have for our streets. The Environmental Advisory Council purchased 6 of these signs, so we can really highlight our commitment to our sustainability and to our commitment for the habitats where birds and wildlife and people are living. I'm going to pass these on to George tonight so that we can work to figure out where exactly they would be good to place. The Birdtown PA gave each township, or is giving each township, 2 free signs. I'm keeping one so that when we do a table event, we can have an opportunity to show everyone our commitment. So I know you have a very busy schedule tonight, but I'm hoping, since I have all 6 signs here today, that we could have a quick photo if you think it's too
Janet,
much.
when have we ever said no to that? Come on, we'll do it. Let's go.
Okay, maybe somebody could help me get these signs. And I'd like to invite Cindy Mahala up here too. She's a member of our EAC and has helped so much with our birds. So it is my goal to put something in our newsletter that comes out quarterly to announce exactly what Birdtown is working on and encourage people to become involved with it. So look for that, and I'll definitely include this picture as part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you for all the work that you do on our EAC, but also in this project in particular. So thank you for that. Is there any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll move into the CM3 presentation, 8.2. Is there a representative from CM3, Steve? Perfect.
Yeah, so just let me give a quick background as Brad comes forward. The CM3 had come out and done an initial review of our current system and looked at it. In the process came up and said that we need to do a little bit more study. And so I've asked Brad to come and be able to share with you what would be done in that study and understand the difference of what they've done and what they need to do and why we need to take this step forward. So.
Hey, my name is Brad Apple.
They may have turned off the mic. Is it on green? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Brad Apple. I'm the Director of Business Development for CM3 Building Solutions. As Stephen mentioned earlier this year, we performed some functional testing of the systems within the township building. The proposal that you have is a continuation of those services. And it's the foundation of it is retro commissioning, which is essentially functional performance testing of building systems, mechanical systems, automation systems. The focus of that proposal is on the mechanical and automation systems, specifically on the geothermal systems and some exhaust systems. With that testing, there will be a final report of deficiencies and any recommended corrective actions that may need to be taken. And so the intent is to focus on that testing. This is actually a good time of year to do that because we're getting into the shoulder season, meaning that we see summer-like conditions, but we can also see cooler type conditions. And so we get to test how the systems are operating in different types of conditions that we see in the fall.
Let me ask you this question. Are you done with your presentation? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what did you do initially?
Initially, we focused on the airside systems, the air handling systems. We've gone through the building. We've begun the retro commissioning portion on that equipment already. So this is the remaining equipment that was not tested in that initial. A preliminary report was submitted for review. And so these systems will be added to that for full completion.
So based off of the first study that you conducted, did we not find what the issue was? Because obviously, as you can feel today, the air is clearly not working or the system's not working to what I think this board would say is appropriate. So is the reason why we're doing the second study is because we didn't find out what the issue was in the first one?
It's not that we didn't find any issues. It's just it wasn't a full evaluation.
Okay.
So this is focusing more on the heart of the system, the geothermal system.
And is it customary in your industry to break it up into two, or do they usually do it all in one shot? Like, why did we decide to do this in two studies as opposed to doing it in one?
I think we were getting farther in and costs were mounting, and we stopped and provided the report as it was and asked for continuation of the services.
So at the conclusion of this study, is it just the study or is it a study and repair?
There's no repairs involved.
So after the study's concluded, we then go out to another individual or do you do the repairs? I mean, you know what I'm getting at. I'm getting at what I always say is that we don't want to continue to see study after study. And no solution.
Without moving forward. So the goal, as I understand it, and Brad and George can help me out if I'm heading in the wrong direction, the goal would be to come up with a complete list of what it takes to make our system functionally operational in a way that the building is comfortable, understanding what equipment we have here today, what's been installed, and where we are, with the idea that we don't want to go back and recreate a system that we just put in within the last 5 or 6 years. And so but obviously, the board is aware, painfully having sat in this room, there's times that this room is like so humid and other times when you can hang meat in the room. And so but that's the case throughout the building. And so the idea is to come back and have a complete report with suggestions about what we would do to make the system function with what we have, and potentially some minor adjustments or maybe even some enhancements to what we have here today. And
After our meeting from last week, I took the initiative. I reached out to the engineer, the project management staff, and other members that were involved with the original project. And I got some of the background information on it as well. And they were all in agreement that this is fundamentally the best practice step to go through this process. Our firm, we provide turnkey services. So it's more than just a study. If there are repairs that need to be made, the proposal will be given for those and further recommendations if needed.
I would make note that CM3 is a CoStarz participant. And so as we go through this process, we could continue to move forward with them if you so desire.
So Steve, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see it here. Are you asking for us to approve, bless you, are you asking us to approve the agreement tonight?
I am, I believe it's,
Why can't I find that?
7325.
Yeah, but where is it on the agenda?
It'll approve it. It's just a presentation.
So if it's not on there, I'm guessing we can't do it tonight unless we want to, the solicitor wants to say this is an emergency.
Not an emergency.
yeah, I apologize. It did not get put on down under 15.
Well,
I would look at the proposal, not. So you could, what's that?
You have the proposal on here,
Yeah, I mean,
there's
there's,
part of the proposal, right?
you can move to amend the agenda. Want to proceed, you can move to amend the agenda, put it on there. You can just, with an explanation of presentation was put on, but the actual approval was inadvertently left off, and there's steps that we can take to posting it and stuff like that. We can fix that
I, for one, would,
pre-publication problem.
I for one would like to go that direction because I think the air conditioning here and the heating system is beyond horrible. And we're going, seasons are going to change, and then we're going to have the other problem where it's like an oven in here more than it is now.
what is the board's desire? Anyone?
I'm fine doing it tonight. That's what you're suggesting, right, Mike?
I would like
We
to
vote
move
for
forward
it.
with his
Yep.
evaluation because I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's going to take a few weeks, and then we got to get a proposal from somebody to correct the work. I mean, it's not going to happen in a few days.
Yep. So, Rich, do I need to, with regards to amending the agenda, since we already adopted the agenda, do I just make another motion to amend the agenda?
Yes, sir.
So do I have to do a motion to amend the agenda, then read the motion and then
Yes.
do it that way? Okay. So can I make a motion? Are you finished with your report?
Yes, sir.
Is there any questions from the board? Is there any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to include the CM3 proposal totaling $7,325 for the retro commissioning RCX study. Is that fair to say, study?
That's correct.
That is my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Russo to amend the agenda to include that item. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. I will now make the motion to approve the proposal by CM3 totaling $7,325 for the retro commissioning RCX study.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now move down to 8.3, the revenue budget presentation. Mr. Lafiata.
All right, so just to do a quick recap of where we're at with the budget. So far, we presented our capital purchase, our proposed capital budget, our proposed personnel budget, and at the last meeting, I'm sorry, the operating budget. Right now, we're going to go over the revenues for the first time. So our first category of revenues is going to be the use of fund balance. The 2022 budget was passed with a $0 use of fund balance. As you can see now, there's a $14,200 budgeted item in there. That is for the line painting. That was a budget adjustment that we made. At this point in time, we're not proposing to use any fund balance to balance the budget. This usually comes later on in the budget when we really put the revenues and expenses together. So moving on to real estate taxes. Real estate taxes are being proposed at $6,253,853, which is an increase of approximately $104,000 over last year's budget. Our current proposed budget is budgeted at a 98% collection rate. Additionally, the township believes that they're going to collect an additional $65,000 in interim taxes in 2022 that is going to be added to our tax base for 2023. So these are estimates at this point in time. We don't know the real number until November, I believe it's November 13th, when the county releases it. Once that letter comes out, we have our actual assessment for 2023. So we'll come back and revisit our tax category. Sure. Yeah, so the 104 is our 65,000 that we're going to add for the new construction, which was interim tax this year, as well as it's a 98.5% collection rate. We actually budgeted 98% last year, so there's an extra 0.5% collection rate in there. So that's your 104. Transfer taxes are in your next category, other taxes. So your other taxes include your transfer tax and your LST taxes, your two main components. As you see, we're going to project that we're going to end the year above what we were budgeted, but next year we're actually reducing our proposed budget by $45,000. There's actually two things that are going on here. For our projections for 2022, there's a one-time large purchase that we're not going to see every single year of the mainline health building. That's why our projections are higher than what we were budgeted. And then reduction for next year is actually to do with our LST tax. Our LST tax is trending, I want to say downward. We are currently working with Keystone to figure out why our LST collections aren't where we thought they were going to be. They're coming out with a study, and they're going to give us what businesses are going down because we're projecting not hitting our LST number for 2022. So like I said, one of the things that we're going to do is we're working with Keystone to figure out what's going on, why we're not collecting the LST that we believe that we should be collecting.
And what I will tell you is I did a quick look at what some of our top employers are in the township. And I think four or five of the top 10 all had a reduction in the number of employees. And some were substantial. So I think that's part of it. If you kind of look at what's happening in a couple of the business areas of town, you'll see that, we don't have a lot of activity like on Campus Boulevard and things like that, which would have been bringing people in where we would have had higher LST. And so we're seeing that trend because of that. We are looking into some other things. I think there's a couple things that aren't showing up, but we're following up on that.
And hopefully we'll have some more information for the board at the next meeting. So business licenses is our next category. As you'll see, we're projecting coming over budget again. This has to do with two things. The first is we received more contractor licenses this year than previous years. And the second is the township really did a thorough catch up, if you will, of businesses that haven't paid in some previous years. We followed up with everybody. So that's why we're projecting a little bit higher than budgeted for 2022. Fines are showing a decrease of about $4,100. These are the fines that we get from the Commonwealth as well as the district court. The past 2, possibly 3 years, we just haven't hit our number, and it's been a decrease. So we're proposing decreasing that number by about $4,100. Interest is our next category. We're going to propose about a $10,000 increase in interest. As you'll see later down on the budget, on the agenda, we are going to ask permission to invest some funds in 2022 and into 2023. If we get permission to do that, we should see better returns on our investment other than just sitting in the checking accounts that they're sitting in now. So for that reason, we increased it about $10,000. Rent, this is our room rental and our Drexel Lodge. We're not proposing any changes for 2023. Next is our state grants. Again, you'll see there's no changes for the 2022 to 2023 budget. This is our recycling grant, as well as some other state grants we get. If we get word that we're going to get them later in the year, we'll budget them for 2023. I believe we have a couple grants outstanding now. We're just waiting to hear if we get them or not. Our next category is going to be our state and federal revenues. This is our PERTA tax, public utility rebate tax, our pension state aid, and our fire insurance. The majority of these are just pass through. We get them from the state and we give them to the fire company, or we give them to our pensions. So if the revenue doesn't come, neither does the expense for this line item. Next is our local grants. Just like I said with state grants, we'll learn a little bit more information later on in the year. If we get some of the grants that we've applied for, this number is going to change before the time the budget is passed. But if we don't get the revenues, the expenses won't be there as well. Our other financing sources, the primary components here are our SEO, school resource officer reimbursement from the school district, as well as the municipal authority's payment for the township for the public works, as well as the administrative staff. If you recall back when presenting the personnel budget, we are asking for an additional bookkeeper to help out with some things around the office. Township staff has put a little bit more time than we normally have in previous years with the municipal authority. Therefore, we're going to ask the municipal authority for a larger reimbursement because they're taking up more of the township's time. Our pilot tax, this doesn't change. Payment in lieu of taxes. This is going to be our Episcopal as well as the Suburban Seahawks. It's $14,000. No change is anticipated. Our next is charges for service. The primary revenue generator in this is subdivision and land development fees. Currently, we don't believe that there's going to be a lot of subdivision and land development fees in 2023. Therefore, we're proposing to reduce this line item by $22,500. This is our permit revenue. As you can see, there's $1.3 million budgeted in 2022 and $1.3 million budgeted in 2023. At this point in time, we're not really sure when Ellis is going to pull the permits, whether it's going to be at the end of this year or next year or early next year. So when we get some better information on that, this is a line item that we're going to have to really come back and revisit because we'll either need to adjust our projections for 2022 or our 2023 budget, just depending on when the permits come in. Next is our highways and streets. This is our PennDOT mowing agreement, our PennDOT snow agreement. This number, there's no change proposed here. Next is the category called other. This is a category that it's a catch-all category, just items that don't fit in anything else. We really try to limit the budget here because we really try to find a category for everything. As you can see, we're projecting about $9,600. I'm sorry, about $10,000 for 2022. In previous years, we were closer to the $5,000 mark, so we're going to try to bring it back down to the $5,000. Sale of township assets. Again, later on in the agenda, we have a couple cars that we were going to try to re-advertise. We sold about $70,000 worth of assets this year. We're not aware of any asset sales of next year, so we're going to budget just like we did in 2022 with zero. Next is our refund of prior year expenses. This is also something that we usually don't budget for. This is something that we get refunded. It's something that we paid for in the previous year, but get the refund the next year. So as you can see, there's a zero budget for 2022, and we're proposing a zero budget for 2023. So I know we went through that pretty quickly, but overall, we're proposing $10,584,674 in 2023 revenues, which is an increase of about $78,000 over 2022's budget. So with that, I know, like I said, we went through that pretty quickly, but I'll answer any questions anybody has.
Is there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? I will make note, I know we've done this before, but for those people who, for those residents who have not been paying attention, the township has received for the third year in a row, correct me if I'm wrong, right? The Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. And we received it again for this year's budget.
Yes, we did.
So since we're talking about budgets, I wanted to make sure that that was, whenever we can get that plug in, same with our AAA bond rating. I like to make sure we get it in as much as we can. So thank you, Rich.
Hey, Rich. Rich, question?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're projecting 6.2 million real estate tax for the end of this year, 6,235,000, right?
Yes, that's
And we're raising the collection rate in the 23 budget.
Yes, so last year we actually tried to budget at the 98.5% rate when we passed the budget. But when the number came out from the county, there's always usually an increase in assessment from the November 13th number to the actual number when we get our tax rolls for the next year. So it ended up being a 98% collection rate, but we anticipated a 98.5% collection rate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but so we're increasing, we're assuming another 0.5% collection rate, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we have that, and also we're, I would assume we look at bringing more homes online here for 23. So do you think, question would be, do you think that we're being a little bit conservative at this point with the 23 real estate budget?
If I can, this is Steve. I would say that a couple things that we've taken into account. One, we did budget at the 98.5. We are budgeting for $60,000 in increase based on the new homes that have come in or new properties that have come on. And so we've budgeted that. The thing that we're also seeing is there have been a fair number of adjustments made to existing properties this year. And in fact, you'll see if you look over the last, I believe, the last three agendas, we've written a fair number of checks back to local property owners who have appealed their rate. And so we're trying to take all that in to get to that number. Obviously, it's moving and we'll keep adjusting it over the next couple months as we continue to move for the budget. But right now, based on what's been coming out and what we know we have as new coming in, that's how we got to where we are.
Right. But yeah, understood, Steve. But those reductions are reflected in the proposed in the anticipated 22 revenue, right?
Well, those are in the projections, yes.
So yeah, so kind of they're taken into account there. I mean, okay, I don't want to get into an in-depth discussion here, but I assume that we'll look a little further at the real estate taxes, maybe over the next month or so.
Yeah, we keep tweaking this number all the way up until the time that you make a decision.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Rich.
Those 68 homes are going for close to $1 million each. That's $1 million extra in assessment, or somewhere near there. And then you have whatever else BPG has got coming online this year, whatever else
So
is coming on. And,
yes.
I mean, how do you take that into account? Because You're saying the number's basically staying the same. And my question is, how does that get accounted for?
The assessment,
Well, no, if you got $70 million of assessed value coming online or somewhere around there, and we're getting a portion of that money, then
Right. It has to do with when they actually get the CO. And
Right.
so we're looking at what they're projecting as their time frame, and
Right.
we're adding that to the budget accordingly, based on when we think when they're going to get their COs. And
Right.
we'll go back and look at it again as we get a little closer to the end of the year. There's a few that are going to happen this year, which is why the number going into 2023 is what it is. We'll have to look at what we project for next year. But even certain things are going to close. They're going to start, like, for example, the apartments are going to
Right,
start
they're-
renting,
right,
but
correct.
until they get the final CO, the county isn't going to put it on the records. And so that won't happen, we know, until probably about middle of next year at this point. And so we're taking that into account, but that's when we're taking into account. So it will only be half a year's worth of assessment that we can put in for what we're going to get, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Steve,
I mean,
can
we're
we
gonna go
get an
back and look
update?
at it again, but there's a lot of different moving parts about when things go through the county's level and when they come back and say it's effective as of this point.
Steve, can we
num-
put an update on the real estate tax, where you're at, first meeting in October, a month from now?
We will definitely have one the first meeting October, potentially even in 2 weeks, depending on where we are.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience, the public, I should say? Yeah, Cindy.
Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run. First of all, I want to commend the board and the staff for receiving that Excellence in Budgeting Award. I think that's not the first time you've received it. I'm not sure exactly what the name of it was.
3 years, right,
3
Rich?
years.
3 years in a
So,
row.
Congratulations, as a taxpayer who works hard for my money and gives some of it to you. I appreciate your diligence in watching how you collect it and spend it. I would just like to make kind of a big picture comment on a topic that came up at the last presentation, where you were talking about possible expenditures and the possible expenditure of hiring a grant writer to help the township obtain funds that way. One of the things I didn't see here, and I don't want to get into the details, is revenues from grants. And I know the EAC and some of the other organizations within the township have been successful on a very modest scale in getting grants to help fund quality of life and other enhancements to the township. But again, speaking at a high level, I would just like to encourage you, think big, think really big. There were some news items this week that came to my attention, and that is that the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources on September 8th awarded Westtown Township $2 million in its bid to acquire and preserve forever the 104-acre Craybilly Farm. That's just astounding. And that's just the most recent example of the many documents that cross my desk that I see of significant grants, hundreds of thousands of dollars being awarded to Radnor Township, other townships around here. There is money out there. And with the infrastructure funding coming up this year, there is even more money out there. So I would totally endorse and applaud your hiring of a grant writer to help get some of these funds. You know, there is big money out there and it can be captured. The one other thing when you're thinking big is that $2 million funding that Westtown Township got is follows on April, where the Westtown Township Supervisors $20.8 million. None of that was on the microphone. $20.8 million to turn that into a park. So your peers and other townships are thinking big. They're thinking really big. Just encourage you. I thank you for your attention to the detail, but would encourage you to think big in terms of putting things in place like a grant writer to help look for and get some of the funding that's out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, we'll move down to section 10 reports. 10.1, we have received the report from the police chief. Chief Lund, do you have anything you want to add or supplement? Thank you very much, Chief. 10.2, report from the Public Works Director, Mr. Sharrock. Do you have anything you want to add or report? Add or supplement, I should say. 10.3, Building Codes Officer, Mr. Rezchek. I don't believe he's on the line, but does anybody have any questions? Nothing to supplement there. Report from the Finance Director, Mr. Lafiata. Do you have anything you need to add or supplement? Oh, you're right in front of me. Couldn't find it.
Actually, he does. He just doesn't know it. In your packets that you all received, it was the repeat of actually June's financial statement. I just wanted to call your attention. You had requested that we added projections on at least a quarterly basis, and so that's been added. I just wanted to make sure you had a chance to look at that and make sure that's kind of achieving what you're hoping that it accomplishes. We can talk more about that at a future meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that you saw that and were aware of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. Report from the Library Director, Ms. Caruso. I don't believe she's on the line. Report from the Township Engineer. Giovanna did attach her report from Stantec. I don't think anybody has any questions on that. Eric, I'm highly suspecting that you don't have a report to give or anything you want to add to that.
No, I do not have anything to add to that. This week I will be getting up to speed with the staff on all the.
We have a busy schedule for you. We've already booked you out for a couple of days.
There is a few plans that were sitting here on my desk already waiting for me, so.
There's a cot in the back too.
Yes.
just in case you need it. So 10.7, report from the Township Manager, Mr. Neese.
Right. Yeah, I have several things I wanted to go over with you real quickly. You have approved in the past a 5-year agreement with PennDOT for the winter services where we maintain in regards to snow removal and ice and addressing ice issues on Church Road, Newtown Road, St. David's Road, Bryn Mawr Avenue, Goshen Road, and Bishop Hollow Road. And I just wanted to make you aware, we've signed the documents to continue that service. You've already approved the contract, but we did sign the documents to continue that service. And just wanted to make you aware of that. The next thing I wanted to talk to you briefly about is, we've talked about replacing the tree at the St. Albans Circle. The contractor's gone out and he's found what he calls the 1 in 1,000 tree. It's a 20-foot tall tree. And if the board is okay with that, we will move forward in getting that installed probably early part of November, I think is what we're aiming for. The idea is that we'll get it installed early enough to obviously be able to do the Christmas tree lighting at the beginning of December, but also wait long enough to allow what you see out at the circle to kind of live out its life for this year. I will make note that in order for us to install that tree, much of what's in the center of that circle will need to come out. There's been a lot of plantings done and has kind of beautified the circle that you would go in and see lots of planting in there. But in that section, the tree is you want the tree to kind of be center view. And so we're going to need to pull back from that. And so much of that's going to come out. My understanding is George has met out there with Dave, who's worked with us in regards to the plantings of what could be saved. And so we're going to be looking at what we can save, but some of it's just going to be taken out. So I just want to make sure everybody's kind of aware of that and what we're doing there with St. Albans Circle.
One of them is actually, isn't there a few like invasive bushes there?
There are.
Species? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to take those out as part of the process and also just kind of clean up and, go at it again and, help to make the tree look like it's the center of attention in the
Understood.
process.
Do you need, I don't think you need a vote on it, but I think that the consensus is to go with the 20-foot tree that's been considered the tree of all trees. Are you fine with that, Mr. Russo?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Chandlis?
Yep.
Mr. Partridge?
Yes,
Good.
Okay, we'll move forward. A couple of things. I wanted to let you know of some upcoming events that are going to be happening this Friday and Saturday. It's tree planting out at Brookside. I saw a note. I think it's still 77 trees. Is that correct? Yeah, 77 trees we're going to be planting. We have a team coming out on Friday and then I think general public on Saturday. So that's coming up on Friday and Saturday. Also on Saturday is the Pints in the Square, which is to benefit the Newtown Square Fire Company. And I always like to take just a minute and just remind people that even though the township does do some contributions to the fire company, it costs more than what we do for the fire company to exist. And if we had a paid fire company, to give you an idea, it would probably be about $4 million+ a year. And the township contributes a little over about $260,000 to the cost of the fire company. They've got a new building, which has a mortgage payment. We've helped with the ladder truck, but they still have other expenses of uniforms and fire equipment and all of those kind of things. So this is a good opportunity for people to support the fire company and just be recognizing that it's not something that's paid for by your tax dollars. On Saturday, the 24th from 9 until 1 p.m., there's a recycling drop-off at it's an event that we do with Marple and Springfield Townships, and it's at the Delaware County Community College. And I believe there is a sign up. There's no cost, as I understand it. The township's already paid the cost, but we are asking people to sign up so that we can kind of control the traffic as we go through there. A couple of years, the traffic gets kind of backed up, and this is a way of hopefully making your drop-off period shorter and instead of people just coming in that way. And then on Saturday, October 1st, our Parks and Rec department or Parks and Rec group committee has put together a family fun festival with a children's concert and activities. And I believe that's all benefiting the Railroad Museum, and the Railroad Museum will be open that day. I believe it starts at 10 o'clock and goes till 2 o'clock, and the concert's from 12 until 2. So a great opportunity for people to come out and enjoy, hopefully, a beautiful day, and also experience the Railroad Museum. As you're aware, we've been dealing with trying to figure out our road program and continuing to stay on top of that. And we did, I believe it was close to 11 miles of roadway just about 2 years ago in 2020. As part of when the SOAR project came through, we came back and we followed up with that and worked with the municipal authority, and together we worked and we were able to do quite a bit of roadway. And because of that, we haven't done anything for the last 2 years. We believe there'll be enough funding to probably do a very small project next year. And so we have shared with you some potential of some road projects that would be a potential for next year. What we would like to recommend is that you look at the sheets that we've shared with you. They look at roads like Rockwood and Byron and Dutton, Hilltop and Radnor and Springhouse Lane. We also looked at potentially, there was a mistake made by the Marple contractor when they were doing Springton Point Drive that actually impacted Newtown's portion of Springton Point Drive. And so they came in and they did a mill, or I haven't completed it yet. I don't even think they started actually. It just, they came in and did a milling and did it incorrectly. And so they're going to go back and they're going to fix part of that. The township has worked with them, and we're going to pay for it to kind of be complete to do all of our portion of Springton Point Drive. But we have also looked at the possibility then of next year of doing Frog Hollow and Sleepy Hollow to bring it up and be able to be about the same condition as what Springton Point Drive will be. And so that they'll be on the same par. And so that's what we're looking at, trying to make sure we have enough funding. One of the suggestions would be is that we would consider potentially, if anyone's from the board is interested, if you're all interested, we'll do an advertisement and we'll do a road drive around. We haven't done one in several years, but we would do a road drive around and let you see not only these roads, but also the others on our list of, kind of where we stand. We've been working really hard. We've done about half the roads in the township over the since about 2013. Make sure I get the right dates. I always look over to George. He keeps me straight. But since about 2013, which has been 9 years, we've done over half the roads. We plan on attacking the next set, and getting them done as quickly as possible. Some of them are in poor or fair condition. We've tried to put them kind of in the order of the worst, but yet doing the roads that are together so we can have complete projects. So if you're interested in that, if you'll let us know, we can advertise that. If you all want to go together, if you want to go as 2 or 3 different groups, we'll plan that out and work with you in trying to do that. The last 2 things that I have, I just wanted to let you know, we do have on your agenda tonight to fill the position of the crossing guard. And so we just wanted you to be aware of that. That's been a position that's actually been open, I think now for almost a year, isn't it? That we've been trying to fill. We finally had somebody come forward. This particular person was actually a crossing guard in another community for years and retired. And they said, we'd like to do it here in Newtown Square. And we said, that's awesome. And so, so we're getting somebody who has lots of experience, who's willing to step right in. And so that's on your agenda tonight. And then I've been working, if you'll recall, we've been working with Equus as they're planning the widening of Route 3. And there's a part of that project that's in front of Casey's. And we met last month and talked about the importance and looking at what that would look like where that widening happens. They were originally going to put bollards there, and that wasn't your favorite solution. And so we looked at doing a concrete curb, potentially with sidewalk. That has an impact in that it will, it's all in the right of way, but it will require some relining of their parking lot, which will require us to get an easement. And one of the challenges with that parking lot is there's lots of owners. And so unless the board has an objection, I'll be writing a letter to those owners saying that this is something that we're wanting to do to beautify the township. And in doing so, we need to do this. And we would like them to grant the easement so that the contractor for Equus can go ahead on their property and do that. So just wanted to let you know we're doing that.
Is that it?
Just want to make sure I've talked about everything I have. That is it.
I just have one question. So obviously now that we're getting into the fall, we are starting to see more and more requests for block parties.
Yes.
And I don't, it seems that this year in particular, people are taking issue with the township's policy. And so I just wanted to give you the opportunity to explain for the masses, because I think that there is some miscommunication or misinformation on what it is that what we require and why we require individuals to get signatures
Yes.
when they want to shut down a street for a block party.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are going on. We do require a permit for anybody to do a shutdown for a block party. And so they need to come to us and they ask for the permit. And the reason why we ask for the permit in the first place is so that we make sure that the ambulance team, the fire company, the police department are all notified, sign off, and know that what's happening. We also typically have to put out roads, road closed signs and put out, what do you call them, George? The barricades. Thank you. I had a brain dead moment over something simple, but barricades. And so we need to know how many. We need to know where they're going to go. And so we make sure that that's all part of that process. And then what we found is that on several occasions, the roads have been closed and the residents have not all known about it. And so we've came back and just said, we're not saying that you have to have 100% support to go and do it, but at least everybody knows and everybody's been contacted and signs off that they've been told that the road is going to be closed. You may have somebody in the neighborhood says, I don't want to participate, I don't want to do it, but they at least need to be made aware of in the section where it's going to be closed down. The big issue becomes twofold. One is if there's somebody who has medical conditions that require, support to get in and out, this way we can be notified and we can be told if that's what the case is, and we can make sure that we've kept the roads open enough to be able to do that. We always want the road to be open enough to get fire equipment in. We always want the road enough to be, if there's an ambulance that needs to be gotten in. And so that's the reason why we want to know where things are going to be put in the road, if there's anything that's being put. And that's why we push for, bouncy houses and blow up slides and all of those things to actually be in yards and not in the middle of the roadway, because those don't come down in minutes. Like, it takes time for those to deflate and get around them. We need to have access so that the fire company can still get through and that the ambulance can still get through if needed. And so those are the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. And it's really to make sure that, one, all residents are aware who live in the area, and two, that we provide safety for all of those during that time. And that if there is a call, and, let's say that we normally go through that direction to go to a call, they know to go around it, and it doesn't waste precious moments that would be needed in potentially saving lives.
And this isn't something that we're necessarily fabricating of a worst case scenario. This is something that unfortunately has occurred
It has.
multiple times last year and in years past, which I think is probably a fair assumption to say why we have maybe made this policy a little bit more formalized and a little bit more, stronger. if you will.
We just want to make sure that everybody's safe in the process. That's our goal.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So what might seem like a minor inconvenience at first pays off in dividends when it comes to our first responders. So I appreciate that. Any other questions for Mr. Neese? Seeing none, we'll move down to the fund transfers, section 11.1. Can I get a motion to approve the transfer of $729,701.41 from the general fund to the American Relief Act Fund? This money represents the second of two payments that is going to be deposited by the state into the general fund from the American Relief Plan.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 11.2, can I get a motion to approve the transfer of $4,614,024 from the general fund to the American Relief Act Fund? This money represents an additional deposit made by the state into the general fund for the American Relief Plan.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 12, payments. 12.1, can I get a motion approving the Township 2021 tax refund for a court order reduction to Helene Jensen totaling $3,175.75 for 20 Bishop Hollow Road. Russell and Janet Kamal totaling $382.79 at 39 Sleepy Hollow Drive.
So, second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion?
I just want to make a mention that this is decided by the county. I just want to make a mention that this is decided by the county's appeal board, not by us.
That's correct.
We just have to do what they say.
Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.2, can I get a motion approving the escrow release payments as provided below?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.3, can I get a motion to approve the Township 2022 tax refund for a court-ordered reduction to the below listed names and properties?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.4, can I get a motion approving the tax penalty refund of $35.10 to Renee Joyce for 204 East Chelsea Circle due to a billing error?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.5, can I get a motion approving the $175 refund to Teresa Moore for Drexel Lodge booking that was not used?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.6, can I get a motion approving pay request number 1 totaling $47,289.39 from Zone Stripping, Inc. for the Township's line stripping project, leaving a remaining balance of $11,352.39. This remaining balance includes the additional work requested at the Radnor Drive and Valley View intersections as approved by the Township Engineer.
So moved.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Chandler. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.7, can I get a motion approving pay request number 2 totaling $70,896.35 to Eagle Contracting Incorporated for all work performed at Green Valley Road and the Township Building, leaving a balance of $8,104.23 as recommended by the Township Engineer.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 13, bills. I have reviewed the bills, and so I will make the following motion. Can I get a motion to ratify the bills, check register dated September 2nd, 2022, totaling $9,796.61?
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.2, I will make a motion to ratify the bills on EFT register dated September 7th, 2022, totaling $24,097.37.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Chandler. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.3, I will make a motion to approve the bills on check register A dated September 12th, 2022, totaling $434,953.07.
Second.
Motion is made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 14, developer release. 14.1, can I get a motion approving escrow release request number 2 and final release totaling $13,770 for 20 Clover Lane as recommended by the Township Engineer.
So moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Chandler. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 15, new business. 15.1, consider approving the request from BPG to temporarily use a portion of the reserved access sewer capacity allocated to the township totaling 15,525 gallons a day to accommodate the new office building and event center. BPG will be responsible for getting the capacity released from developers who have not used all of their allocated capacity to restore the township's reserves contingent on the approval of the township manager and solicitor. Before I get the second, I know Mr. Ford is here. I don't know if you want to add anything to this, John, or give us a little overview of what this is.
And,
there's been many months of work with.
and John, just, and then your hope is to use the remaining of the 33 to also finish your project. Is that correct? Yeah.
Wait, say that second part again?
So the goal will be to get the 33,000 released from down those areas down below from the different
The excess
developers.
33.
That's 33. Equus's total gap is this 15 that they're asking for, plus roughly another 15. And so they're going to use that they've released, that they get released to finish their project. And that's the planning module they're putting together. They're-
Return ours.
And then they'll give us back the 15 that they borrow from us right now as coming from that 33, but they're going to use the remaining 15 that's there or whatever to finish out their project. I just wanted everybody to understand, it's not, the township's not getting an additional 15.
Yeah.
They're using it, which is what they're doing. They're putting the planning module, and that's what DEP has directed them. I just wanted it to be clear so that there wasn't some miscommunication further down the road, somebody thinking something was going to happen that's not.
Got it. Let me ask a couple of questions. When we say temporarily, how long do we suspect that'll take for us to get back our reserves?
So the planning module is going.
And that's on, right? That microphone's on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. The planning module, once Dave Porter from the municipal authorities reviewed it, we'll submit it. We expect that planning module to get approved sometime in the first quarter of 2023. So, roughly about 6 months or so.
And there's got to be, I'm guessing, some sort of agreement between you and the township, I'm guessing, right? Or is there one that's going to be coming down the line that memorializes this?
So we have an agreement that we've provided the municipal authority. Let me take a step backwards. At the August meeting, the municipal authority granted us the 15,000 gallons. We have an agreement, a purchase agreement that we have provided the authority for that 15,000 gallons. There needs to be an agreement now between ourselves and the township that memorializes the planning module will replace the 15,000, whatever the number is, out of the 33 will replace the township reserves.
They would reimburse us any costs that they would reimburse us any cost that the township would incur with respect to this process, whether it be legal fees or professional fees.
John, let me ask you this question. How did, and I might be missing something, so I apologize, but how did you get approved if you don't have the allocation? Or am I putting the cart before the horse there? Like what, like how are we?
Development?
Yeah. Like if
It was
we need-
contingent upon,
The
it's
sewer.
contingent upon getting these certs.
It was contingent, his approval was contingent upon getting the sewage. So that's why nothing,
You can't get a CO or anything with that.
well, yeah, I know, but I guess my question was, how would the plan get approved without him having the allocation already allocated to him? I mean, I would think, right?
Let me explain. So we have been working with the sewer authority going back several years now. The sewer authority has always known the capacity was available for us. They had more capacity than they needed. So we have been working with the authority, I don't know, 4 or 5 years at this point on getting that capacity, the additional capacity that and it actually goes a lot further back. We originally requested for the whole entire project 225,000 gallons of capacity when we joined CDCA back in 2008 or 9. And we were only allocated 185. If I got the 225 back then that I requested, I wouldn't be here tonight, but that's history. But the capacity is available. It's not a question of having to go to CDCA to get more capacity in the township.
Okay, I'm sure I'll have other questions. Anyone else from the board?
Well, what happens if the other developers don't release, the capacity? I mean, what's that process like? Do they have to release that, or are you guaranteed for that to
So-
happen?
Yeah, so as I understand it, Stephen was, correct me at the same meeting, your engineer went back and looked at all the approved developments on the south end of Newtown Township. And looked at, and say for instance, Muirwood. Muirwood originally had maybe 250 homes, and they only built out 176. They're completely built out, and the 200 plus EDUs that they were allocated, the differential between the 170 and the 200, that would come back to the township. So he took every development on that southern end of the township, and they're all completely built out. And the ones that aren't built out, he added allocations for it. So that's how, we didn't come up with a number. Your engineer went back and relooked at the whole area.
There's a difference between, there's two processes. Township has planning responsibility for sewage disposal and treatment. Planning. And then our municipal authority actually operates the sewer system. Municipal authority actually sells EDUs, which then become owned by that developer or the property owner. Ours is not an ownership issue as a township, it's a planning allocation. We're saying from planning purposes, okay, here, DEP, we have a plan to sewer this portion of our township, and here is how our plan is going to work. And so we allocate so much, DEP approves that. If it doesn't get used, it's not really an ownership issue, it's an allocation issue that, okay, DEP, we need approval from you. What you allocated over here before is no longer needed there, was never purchased by that developer or that landowner. You still have additional capacity available through this central Delaware County authority that through which all our sewage flows. So we want to use it this way. So the DEP the only thing the DEP wants to make sure is we have a way of sewering the respective areas. The way they keep track of that is through planning modules and large plan updates. So we did that huge plan update back in 2016, I guess it was. That was for the whole Crum Creek watershed area. The Darby Creek watershed area has an older 537 plan. And then every time a developer comes in, it's either a small project and they get a little waiver of this formal planning process, and the DEP kind of just keeps track of it. But for a bigger project, they actually have a formal planning, mini planning update called a planning module that usually the developer does and submits. So it's kind of the process that he's talking about, is the planning process. The money, the actual purchasing the EDUs, that's what he's talking about, that he's worked through with the CDCH. Substantial sum of money. It's $1.2 or $1.3 million for the total.
I mean, we have to purchase this capacity, the extra capacity out there. We have to purchase it.
But we don't get the CD, who you're buying it from gets that million, the township does not,
The
correct?
municipal.
The
Municipal authority
Gets
does.
it.
Yes.
We're just a planning process, but it's just like that 2016. And you've done these before. It's just a little
Yeah.
weird. We've approved and I've reviewed with you planning modules before, where we say, okay, well, this developer's here, how's it getting sewered? And they say, okay, well, we're going to either do it on site, or we're going to do septic, which we don't really do anymore,
Right.
or we're going to connect to the public system this way.
So so it's the township as a whole, correct? John was talking about from the southern part of the township, but it's the township as a whole. Am I right in that?
Yeah, well,
I know we have two different
right,
servicers.
we have two primary areas, but under the old planning documents that the DEP uses to track our sewage, there was this lower end of the township where we had these projects allocated that, okay, for our planning purposes, they're going to use 250,000 gallons in this area because we have these types of projects pending. those projects over the years got developed in a certain way and didn't use everything that we had allocated for that.
Do we get these back? I mean, because I've done these before, and quite frankly, I wouldn't have gotten this far without, you know what I mean? You had to have your EDUs, and you had told, and we were told that they had them, or you had that you were talking municipal authority, that there was capacity when you began the project.
Correct.
Now you said that you were allocated the 185. You had asked for 2 something, and you were allocated 185 by the township or by?
That was back, I don't know, 2008 or so.
That was before all these homes and all the additional, because homes actually add more. You use up more capacity when you have residential.
Actually, so let's take an apartment unit. An apartment unit is allocated at 225 gallons a day. We have our, the information that we have from our pump station. We're only averaging 50 gallons a day per apartment. We're not even close to hitting that 185, which is a different discussion. For planning purposes, the DEP uses, you know, for per dwelling unit, as you know, 225 gallons a day.
Right.
So all the apartments are allocated. There's 200 apartment, there's 252 apartments that are currently there. They're all allocated at 225 gallons a day, which goes into our total capacity of 185,000 gallons for the property. We're only using 50 gallons a day.
Right,
on
but for
average per
planning
apartment. But
purposes,
for planning purposes, so we're never going to get to that 185.
but they don't come back down. I mean, because we're responsible for the planning purpose and the 225. We're not responsible for what you actually do use unless this changes, correct? Am I? Yeah.
If the DEP allows a
Yeah,
different.
so we
number to
have,
use.
that's what we're working with. I understand
Right.
you've got these, you know, you've got the technology is better in plumbing now for
Right,
wastewater
fixtures
and things like
energy,
that,
yeah.
the fixtures.
And
I
so
understand that.
they have, for everything that they've built, including what's being constructed right now, they have adequate sewage capacity for that. That's why they were allowed to file those plans. That's why they were allowed to start construction and got permits. What he wants to do, or sorry, what BPG wants to do, or the developer wants to do, is say, look, we want to build this next phase where you see the site work that's happening, right? So we allowed this phased process of the site
Actually,
work to
just
be done
wanted-
just because to stop the mess and get it kind of done to a point where the roads are done and it's stabilized. They want to start building the next building. This-
So they used up their EDUs and now they're
That's
coming to us and
right.
saying, okay, we jammed all this stuff in and now we need your help. So I understand that. I need
Well,
your
we-
help though, John.
Wait,
And-
let me
I
back
know,
up,
but
let me
no,
back up a second. The first 5
Let her
retail
finish, Shirley.
buildings.
Just let her finish, yeah.
I mean, we can, you guys come and ask us for things all the time. We get blasted all over, all the time about what is going on that site. I mean, and you've heard me say this 100 million times. All I'm asking you is to meet with people like Cindy and the EAC and just put some plantings up, do a better job, be a better neighbor. You're asking us for something that we control. And all I'm asking is, like, I'm now you're gonna ask about this garage. I cannot believe that, well, I was against all the stuff that you wanted anyway. How close you guys are to Winding Way. It's unbelievable. It's done. Everything is done. And I'm just venting right now because again, we get blasted everywhere. We're blamed. I was at a dinner party and accused of taking money because of how terrible everything looks. How do you, you know, there's no way. I mean, but John, this is the ridiculousness that we have to hear. Okay? I'm just saying, he doesn't even want to listen to it. That's fine.
I'm listening.
No, it's fine.
I'm listening.
Ask, or can I just, I don't know that this is not what I do for a living, so I
Sure.
really have a difficult time getting my head around this, like in 10 minutes or whatever. But, so you may have answered this, because this is what I just asked, but I didn't understand that you did. Where it says BPG will be responsible for getting the capacity released from developers who have not used all of their allotted capacity to restore the township's reserve. what happens if you can't do that?
So just let me just clarify one quick thing. We have capacity to start the first 5 retail buildings, which we expect to have our sewer exemption any day now. The capacity we're asking for is for the office building, Finley Catering Center, and the final 5 retail buildings. So I just wanted to clarify just one point. We haven't run out. We have enough capacity to start those 5 retail buildings, which we plan on pulling permit for next month. Or I think we're in for permit now, but
Can you answer what I asked then, or?
I'm sorry. What was your question? Sorry, I was just.
She's saying the way it works is it has to be released for developers. You have to obtain it from developers. She's saying, what happens if you
No,
can't get that? And I think it's just worded poorly.
It's the developers don't own the capacity. Okay, there was a planning document when those developments were initially approved. They were approved, like the example I gave, for more homes that were actually built.
Yeah, right. It is allocated to projects by the township's planning document approved by the DEP. What they want to do is adjust the planning document. It's not owned by anybody. It wasn't purchased by anybody. But it's a fair question. I think if I may rephrase your question, what if the DEP does not approve the reallocation that you're requesting?
So that's why we had the meeting before we even started this whole process with the DEP back in May, with the municipal authority engineer, with your township manager, with ourselves, with our engineers. And we laid out all the groundwork with the DEP to make sure that they were bought into this process before we even started. And they did.
So could you have DEP give the approvals first before we go out on a limb to hope that they take it? Because, I mean, not that I don't trust what you're saying, but like we have nothing to back it up, right? And as you can imagine, we have people come in all the time and say something. That's where I'm a little uncomfortable as well. And I think that's where you're going with too, Catherine, is what assurances do we have that this is going to go through? And it seems like DEP won't pull the trigger first unless we pull the trigger. Is that fair?
No.
Okay.
No. There's 2 different things going on here. I'm making a request for extra capacity the township has for projects. And we've made that request to the municipal authority. They've granted that request. What I am, that's separate and aside from this other avenue we're going down, where we've identified 33,000 gallons that aren't being used and that are just out there. Our planning document with all the backup information that your engineer put together, and we'll go into the DEP, which we discussed with them. They went through the numbers. Dave Porter was at the meeting, went through all the numbers.
So when you say our engineer, is it Dave Porter or is it Stantec?
It was the municipal authority.
Municipal authority.
Okay,
Well,
so we have no communication with them whatsoever.
Yeah, so what I'm not comfortable unless I see that, unless the report is explained. I think it would be better if Dave Porter could come and explain to us and the rationale and the rationale and the numbers, because we're talking, I know there's specifics, but we're really not talking specifics. I mean, I don't know how, I think maybe Kathy might feel better about it as well.
Well, I mean,
As if
you
she
can throw me in
saw-
that too, because
Yeah.
I don't understand how we can essentially agree to a document that our engineer, I get it, that the municipal authority engineer did it, but I mean, that's like saying the manager and Marple put it together. We don't, this board doesn't have any communication with the municipal authority engineer unless there's an issue. And if it's an agreement that we're going to be legally binding to, I don't understand how we can grant any requests without having the information.
I think what is being said, and possibly my understanding of that developer release from the developer, that was my fault. But what I'm hearing Rich say is that the plan part is under your
Right, purview.
purview.
But the only numbers we're being given is just what's being said in the motion and what John's alluding to tonight. Like, we have nothing else to.
Yeah, if we're asked to make a change to, I'm sorry, Leonard,
You're
if
fine.
we're asked to make a change to the plan, we need to see the plan. I think, am I correct in that? I mean, we're talking abstracts here.
Well, I mean, we know the gallons that they're talking about. That's what they've been going. I mean, Stephen happens to be the,
Right,
no, I mean, it's fair enough. You can have a separate engineer review. I'm not saying that. I mean, if you want to have an engineer review, that's certainly completely appropriate, but it's not, I mean, what Stephen is reviewing is not abstract. It's actual numbers.
no,
He's
no, but
looking
I'm
at the
saying we're
DEP.
sitting here talking
Yeah.
abstracts, basically. I mean, I know they're real numbers, but not seeing that. I, for one, would be more comfortable if Dave Porter could explain it to us. Or explain it. I mean, I
Explain how the
understand this.
extra
Yeah,
15,000
I
or the extra
understand how,
30,000
and
is
Mike
available.
understands how these EDUs are this planning. I've done this. So I
Sure,
understand it.
sure.
But I think, for the public and for the rest of my colleagues, I think it's important that it's shown and that everyone has comfort that this can be attained.
We can, if you'd like, we could ask Dave Porter to attend the next meeting to explain the background of the 30,000 gallons that he's talking about that they're asking to be reallocated.
Mr. Chairman?
I have no problem with that. I would ask him to, in addition to just coming up here and speaking, maybe have something prepared for us ahead of time so we can review it. And if we have any questions through his presentation, we can answer it during that.
He
I
does,
mean,
he does have a pretty substantial report that,
And he can synthesize that for us to be able to understand it.
Yeah.
But again, the fact, I mean, without having to go through and repeating it again, if we're acting on behalf of the township to commit us to something, I want to have some explanation to it. And I want to have some assurances, kind of what Supervisor Chandler was getting at. It seems like a lot of it is open-ended. It might be not open-ended, and it might be extremely clear to all of you. But I think the consensus that I'm hearing, as Supervisor Roberts Lightcap just said, is that I think there's a lot of people here who are uneasy with the way that at least it's being presented to us tonight. So I think that we get that information. I think we can move forward. You have something you want to add?
I wanted to ask a quick question, maybe Steve, or you can answer it, but what does the township use its reserve for? Like, what's that for?
So the idea would be, and I'd have to pull the exact numbers. I believe the 15,000 represents roughly 69 EDUs. I may be off a couple EDUs, one or the other. But it's designed for, now that we've built out the system on the western side of the township, we plan for a certain level of development. But if something comes in and there's a lot that, we might have not had under consideration that's available and somebody wants to connect, that's where it might come from. That's the place where it would be. So I think you have roughly about 120 EDUs that are available to you to kind of, I'm going to say the western portion of the township, just, we kind of use 252 as that basis, but the CDCA portion of the township to do connections that is kind of at your discretion as you go forward.
Like, for instance, the Nolan development that you approved not too long ago, it's 13 residents. So that would be 13 EDUs. He's going to have to get approval from the DEP to discharge 13 homes worth of sewage into our system. And they're going to keep track of that and say, okay, well, now out of your 68, there's 13 more and after you exhaust everything, now you got to plan more. And how do you plan that? What are you going to do? You got to go somewhere and purchase capacity or find some sort of other means of handling the sewage.
So the balance of our township that is still not serviced by sewers, they are already included in the number that is already used, right? We are not if their request is granted, we're not taking away from any existing residents, correct? It's already accounted for.
In this portion of the township, all of our 537 plan incorporated Echo Valley, which is not, it's not taken away from incorporated Florida Park, it included, Phillips Road and all those places that all come down through the Garrett Williamson Foundation area. That includes, Hunter's Run, Run over here that used to be an on-site. It includes all those houses.
We can check that off. The request doesn't take anything.
Yeah,
from
that's all-
any
that's all
existing-
out there, right?
Okay.
But I also want to be clear, it does not include what we've not planned for.
Right.
And so, for example, which would probably go to RHM anyway, but like, Harrison Estates has on-lot systems. So we haven't planned for that. Pretty much anything north of Aronimic's golf course, we've not planned.
So
for.
existing residents still do not have, some existing residents still do
But
not have
but
sewer.
that's not going to be this capacity. We can't, this is capacity that goes to a completely different way.
System.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear, because I
Right.
think
Well,
what you
no,
were asking.
these are the questions that need to be answered because, we have to respond to residents who
Sure.
are saying, I still have an on-site system, and yet you're giving the developer sewer. I mean, you still have to pay for
They
it,
gotta
but
pay
you're
for it.
giving them capacity, so.
And there are portions, to be clear, there's portions that go not to RHM, but through CDCA that were not specifically included in our Act 537.
That's why we need to have, that's why we
So
need.
you'd like Dave Porter to come, Dave Porter was very involved in the 2016 plan. update.
Yes.
He could show areas that were designated for future planning on the Crum Creek watershed side, which I think there was some
That's
down
what
along.
is that what that stands for? Crum Creek?
Well, the
Oh,
Crum Creek.
Chester Ridley.
Yeah,
Central Delaware County Authority.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh, no, stop answering. You're answering me the wrong
Sorry.
question.
we basically split the township for sewage planning
Right, yeah.
purposes, two
I
watersheds.
know the
Darby
R
Creek on the
is, yeah,
east
I'm on
and-
the R side, so,
Exactly. And so a lot of the other side goes to RHM,
yeah, RHM, yeah.
Reimer Haverford Marple System. I think that's what, then this one goes down through CDCA, down through Delcora to Philadelphia, and
Travels a lot.
travels.
A lot.
Goes-
Yeah.
Goes downhill unless you pump.
Yeah, right.
So, but yeah, so understanding, you want Dave Porter to come in and he'll say, this is the planning process we engaged in. This is what this 20 or 30,000 infill was for that we had in reserve. This is where they've identified an additional 30,000, and this is how this would impact your township and your planning going
Right.
forward. And then I'm also understanding you want more clarification as to if the DEP somehow there is a process that goes through. So if they said, no, we're not approving this, then what's the plan B is what you're saying, right?
And,
Not the plan B, I think it's how do you get your
Yeah.
gallons back?
That's what I mean.
And Stephen, and whoever's going to talk to Dave Porter, if we could have a map of the township that shows what is still on, the existing residents
That's in
who were
the,
not.
it's in the Act
It's on that,
537
it's on the plan.
Yeah.
Okay, if
But
we
we're
could
going to
have
talk
that.
about the Crum Creek watershed. okay?
Yeah.
Because it's really doesn't impact that. other
Well,
side.
I know, but I understand that, but I think residents don't realize that they're split in two, I don't think. So I think we need to have that
Fair enough.
explanation.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I think I understand what you want. We
Yeah.
will try to pull something
I'm just
together.
trying to
and
to
I will-
anticipate what questions residents are going to have.
And I will try to make sure you have documentation from Dave ahead of time. So that if you do have questions, then you want to send those back to me, then I can make sure he's prepared to answer them at the meeting.
Thanks, great, thank you.
Johnny, might as well stay up there. So we will table 15.1 then. And then we'll get down to 15.2, which is consider approving the easement to place the support anchors for the new parking garage on Ellis Preserve in the right of way on Winding Way. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Is there a? What's that, Steve? Okay, so the yellow highlighted area is an area on which we're asking the township we have to, in our original design, we had anticipated a retaining wall propping up Winding Way on the yellow side right there. As we got further into design, the footers for the retaining wall were going too far back into Winding Way and would require us to actually dig up that portion of Winding Way. So we looked at alternatives, and one of the alternatives that we looked at and seemed to make sense was soil nailing. And just to give you a little bit of background what that is exactly, we would auger steel rods at a 30-degree angle down below Winding Way. And it's at different levels. So it would probably be at 16 feet on this end of the property here, and narrows down to about 2 or 3 feet. It's a process that we've been working through with your previous township engineer and your director of public works, getting them comfortable with the idea. It's literally it's done, while traffic is still utilizing the roadway, has no impact on the roadway, has no impact on the foundation of the roadway. It goes down at a 30-degree angle, and it is grouted, steel plates put in, and shotcrete across the foundation wall. It's not really a cross street. This is Winding Way here, and this is the Garden Inn. It's right across here. This is just a private road into the development to phase 2.
We put a tent stake in,
I'm sorry?
put a tent stake in.
Yeah.
A cable to the wall.
Yeah, exactly what it is. The cable goes down, it's grouted steel plate and shotcrete across the top.
How deep in the ground is it?
Goes down, I have elevations, on average, it's,
We're not gonna see these from you're in the parking lot there.
oh, you're never gonna see them.
They're gonna be
You're never
buried.
gonna see them.
They're gonna be
They're
buried
buried,
over so many
yeah.
feet of dirt.
They're in the dirt. It's down 12 to 14 feet. It avoids the utilities. Yeah. Yeah, it goes down, the rods go down in an angle like this. It doesn't impact the roadway, it doesn't impact the existing utilities that are out there. And you never see it. It's literally done in a week.
Quick question. And I think you said this in the beginning, and I might have just missed it. So the reason why you need this now is because you're no longer doing a retaining wall?
When we started getting into shop drawings for the garage and the retaining wall, the footers for the retaining wall go back X amount of feet. And what it was happening was they were going back into the roadway, which would have required us to shut down and dig out Winding Way.
Okay.
And utilizing this method, we never touch Winding Way.
Got it.
So less inconvenience.
Yes.
From
Yeah.
Winding Way into.
Yes.
And so the only right, so if this board was to come out and say, I'm purely hypothetical, John, but if this board was to come out tonight and say no to this, your only option is then what? The footers, which then would require us to shut down Winding Way and you to dig in there. But we would still have to grant you access onto Winding Way, right? Obviously,
Yes.
because it's ours. Yeah. So how did this,
Did you get this far?
yeah, I guess that's what the follow-up was, but
It can't be built unless we do this, or what?
This is a method
Just like
which,
the last one?
I'm sorry.
Just like the one just before that, or?
There's a lot of ways you could do it, but Probably feasible if you could shut down.
You can't shut down anyway unless we approve that, can they?
I mean, it's,
That's
it's,
a busy
it's
road.
I mean, it's literally a steel rod like this that gets driven down 12 feet.
Oh, I understand what you're doing. I guess I'm back to what Catherine was just, or Supervisor Chandler was just saying, is that it's like another thing that was approved, but how do we get so far into it? And I guess this one's a little bit easier to explain because it's maybe the engineering and the design aspect of it, so I can kind of see that a little bit more. John, this is completely irrelevant, but with that parking garage, a lot of this is subsurface, right? There's only just it's not like you're gonna
So
see stacks. It's just
there's two levels. It's a 3-level garage with the top level being on grade. The building sits on the top level. These are 2 levels below grade.
So even though it's only 29 feet from the corner, it's not looming because it's just at grade,
It's just
correct?
a grade. Yeah, you're not seeing the other.
It's not like the one along.
It's much different. Yes.
You're essentially just looking at a parking lot. You're gonna be grade to the parking lot that you guys are putting in right now at the corner. Again, not relevant to this discussion, but I just wanted to be refreshed on that since I wasn't here for it.
So at the deep, the rods go from 16 feet into winding way, down to a foot
Understood.
in that small area.
Is there any other questions from the board before we turn it over to the public?
I guess you did work with, George and Steve were talking, but you did work along with George and Stantec. Has this been done before? Is this
Oh, yeah.
a regular
I mean,
practice?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm happy to, I reviewed it with your previous engineer, but I'm happy to review it with your current engineer.
It's like a tent stake.
That's what I was gonna ask, our current engineer, I mean, do you have any opinion on this?
I mean, it's a common procedure that exists to stabilize like a wall, like a shear wall when you start excavating. It's done a lot more if you look into like the city. They'll do this type of work a lot because you're working right up against existing properties. The main question my first exposure to it was this would not, you evaluate, it's not gonna have any interaction or issue with the sewer, the sanitary sewer that's there.
Yeah, it's that was actually the first question that George had concerns about, that existing manhole. And it doesn't, it's 12 feet below the manhole. I think, maybe, it's the elevation.
Below the invert.
So it's about 10 feet. Is that right?
It's 402 and the stake 394. Right, so it is going pretty far below the manhole.
Yeah.
All right, so it's been evaluated. That was the only real thing that was catching my eye on there.
If any residents have anything, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Come on up, Cindy.
Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run, regarding the, this drilling of the holes. A question and an observation. My question is, who's responsible for the ongoing maintenance of this feature? Because to me, it will fail. Things always fail. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
John, what's the answer?
And we have an agreement. This is part of the, we have an agreement before the solicitors take maintenance of this area.
Well, that
This
wasn't
is
mentioned before.
the pins themselves are developer pins. They have the responsibility to maintain that irrespective of any agreement, period, because it's their pins. We're not going to own them just because this would just be easier for them to allow them to encroach. I think what the indemnification agreement is, if there was some sort of impact on the township street, the developer has to fix it.
Yeah,
That's
there's-
what the agreement covers.
There's a sinkhole or something related to
Right,
these pins.
right.
They're responsible.
Right.
We're indemnified.
And that's indefinite?
Yes, it runs with the property.
Yeah, that's whoever owns it into the future.
Because I would just hate to see our taxpayers and public works getting stuck repairing this when things start to fail on this very busy road. That was my
Well, if
question.
the pins fail, it's a different issue than if the road fails. I mean, the pins failed, it's their wall that's going to be impacted more than it's going to be our road problem.
My second is just a comment, and that is, it seems like the developer got himself in a jam because the garage was placed so close to the road that now, after cramming our town full of buildings and roads and traffic and construction, he's coming and asking us a favor.
Well, the only counter I'll give to that, Cindy, is while I agree with the overall premise of the cramming, there is a legal agreement already made by prior boards to that development. So it's one way or the other, it's getting developed. It's just what solution or what way are they going to be able to do it? So it's either we do the one option is the footers where they have to shut down Winding Way and dig up Winding Way, or this one, which I believe is actually more expensive and less intrusive for the residents. Again, I agree with everything that you're saying, but it's not like we as the board sitting here today can say, you know, we don't like this plan, let's stop that. And I'm not going to do it back and forth, but.
No,
go ahead.
I understand that this board did not make that decision.
Okay.
No, I appreciate all your questions and your deliberations.
Thank you. Any other members of the public have any comments? Okay. Any other questions from the board before we make a decision on this? All right, is there a motion?
So move for approval.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge. Is there a second? Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? I'll just say, basically just repeat what I just said right there, but for obvious reasons, or not for obvious reasons, but what I just said to Cindy. But at the end of the day, I will be voting for this motion.
This is to approve an easement agreement, but I haven't finalized that agreement with them. I mean, they've
Right.
given me a proposed agreement. I'm generally okay with it. We might want to tweak it, but I
To-
mean,
to do this
I wasn't
soil-
going to negotiate an agreement if you weren't going to approve it.
No, to do the soil nailing per
Yes.
this. per these
Subject to an
areas,
agreement.
Whatever their
Su-
engineer finally.
Subject to approval
worked
by
out
the
and we're
solicitor.
Identified for eternity.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1 with Supervisor Chanlis in the negative or in the nay. The proper way. Thank you very much, John.
All right, thanks for your time.
Yep, 15.3, consider the approving the hiring of Dawn Coventry to fill the open crossing guard position at a rate of $13.92 an hour, contingent on passing all background checks.
So moved. Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.4, consider approving the new lease of the baseball fields with Newtown Edgemont Little League, subject to the approval of the Newtown Township Delaware County Municipal Authority.
Second,
Motion was made by Supervisor Chanlis, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap. Is there any board discussion? The only thing I want to say is this obviously the lease expired. It was operating on a year-to-year lease. Everyone on this board, and Mr. Giuliano is in the back, so I'll look directly at him on this one, who thank you for sticking through this meeting for this motion. But everybody on this board is a strong supporter of the Newtown Edgemont Little League. The individuals up here, all of them except for me who have children, had their children play there or currently play there. I believe Ed's grandkids play there now. I would like to say I played there, but riding the bench does not constitute as playing.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
your mom and dad still had to work the snack bar.
They
so-
still work the snack bar. This is a investment in the township. This is a jewel in the township. Everybody up here values the work that the volunteers do on countless hours up at Newtown Edgemont Little League. This is a jewel in the crown of this municipality. And as we have continued to support it, we will always support it and preserve that area up there to be just that, which is a Little League field. And so I'm happy that this is being renewed again. It was a fun process, and I look forward to when the next board has to do this. So with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.5, can I get a motion to approve the waiver of township subdivision approval requirements for the lot shared by the township in Newtown Edgemont Little League, a portion of which is being leased by Newtown Edgemont Little League?
So move for approval.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.6, consider approval of advertising and ordinance for the addition of 4 stop signs at Springton Point Drive in the north and south directions of each of its two-way intersections with Sleepy Hollow Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in,
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, this was made as a result of requests from the neighborhood, because I know that we have that's where the milling and the paving is happening currently, right? So it's all these improvements that are happening to those roadways.
that is correct. Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.7, consider rejecting the following bids on municipal bid, as well as banning the bidders from bidding on township property that is for sale in the future due to their failure to move forward with the purchase. $4,450 for the 2015 Ford Police Interceptor from James Washington, $3,600 for the 2008 Ford Explorer from Jeffrey Cordery.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Neese, because, motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Do you just want to touch base on why we're banning them forever?
So municipal has a requirement that if a bidder does not follow through with purchasing what they had bid on, that they get banned. And so we're just supporting that ban as you do this.
Any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.9, consider approving the planting of 77 trees at Brookside Park as shown in the attached map.
I'm going to have you back up to 15.8.
You are correct, Mr. Neese. So that was, we did 15.7.
Rich and George would have liked you to skip it, but I still want to get rid of those 2 vehicles.
Sorry, 15.8. Can I get a motion approving the re-advertisement for bids on the municipal bid for the following vehicles, the 2015 Ford
So
Police
moved.
Interceptor and 2008?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.9, consider approving the planting of 77 trees at Brookside Park as shown on the attached map.
So move.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. The map is coming online now. Is there any board discussion?
Nope.
This is part of the planning that Mr. Neese referenced that'll take place on Friday and Saturday at Brookside Park. Friday from the hours of 1 to 4 and Saturday from the hours of 9 to 11:30. There is a sign up genius that is circulating, and we will make sure that it gets on the township Facebook page. Is there any other board discussion? Seeing none, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay.
I would just make note that this has gone through the proper committees and they've all approved it before it got to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. 15.10, can I get a motion approving McCumbee Engineering to do a topographical survey at the Sawmill property along with 29 Dunmany Road to help address concerns about encroachment on township property?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any board discussion?
If I could, the solicitor and I have been discussing this a little bit, and we believe that it would be appropriate for us to move forward on this, that the property owner would agree to cover half of the cost of doing this since it's for benefit of both parties.
Any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.11, consider approving the extension agreement with Delaware County Public Schools Healthcare Trust for the township's healthcare coverage as approved by the township solicitor.
So move.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese?
I just would make note that we've been in the trust now, I believe, since 2015. The board voted to do that back in 2014 to start the 2015 year. In 2016, we had a rate increase. Since then, we've not had any. So it's been a good thing. This is only a 1-year extension that they are listing My guess is future extensions will be longer, but they needed to get through this 1 year in order to do what we're doing and staying with the 0% increase for 2023.
That's great. Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.12, can I get a motion approving the purchase of new duty firearms for the police department at an approximate cost of $14,438.80? This purchase will be paid for by the drug forfeiture dollars.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts. Lake Is there any board discussion?
I'd just like to ask Chris a few questions.
Can you put that, is that on?
So I'm to understand that we're gonna get $325 for all the trade-ins and the new ones are $425?
Yes.
Okay. So, and the new ones function better or more compatible with the other armor or gun equipment for the surrounding towns? So if we need bullets or something, we can get them from there versus these other ones are getting out obsolete?
Yeah, the guns we have now are not going to be manufactured after 2023 is what we're told. We've had them for approximately 15, 16 years. They've worked fine for us, but now we can't, it's hard to get parts.
I think it's a great deal if you're getting 75% of the value for the new guns
For
and
something
they're
that's
going to be
16
obsolete in a year.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we're.
And they're more modern, they're- according to what you wrote, they're.
Yeah,
The
that's-
functionality and the adaptability is much more with current requirements.
We use firing line in Philadelphia for our purchases, and that's the prices he quoted us.
One question I have is why do you go with the Sing Sauer if you had so many problems with these other ones? Why wouldn't you go with a different model, different make?
We haven't had problems with it. It's just that they're phasing them out.
Okay.
So it's a good it's a very well-known manufacturer, military, FBI. It's highly used in law enforcement and in military, 6 hours.
Is this like a special price for state negotiated for the, I don't know, how do you say, it, please, the state?
For co-stars.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a co-stars, to do a co-stars bid, but that's,
The price
We'll
seems
we'll
very
need to
good.
confirm that it is. for
Well, the
that.
price seems very good. I mean, $425. I'm all for it.
Any other board discussion? Chief, thank you for that very
Thank you.
animated presentation.
You got it.
Appreciate that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.13, can I get a motion approving the purchase of a hybrid Ford Explorer equipped with a police package at a cost of $3,000 over budget?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lake. Mr. Neese, do you want to add anything on this?
Yeah, I just would make note that we're doing this for two reasons. One, obviously, we're hoping that it's environmentally a smart move and we'll get some benefit from that. And we don't have any hybrids in our system, so this will be a good way to test it. The big issue, though, was that we ordered police cars. We ordered 2 police cars last year in December, and it was shared with us that they have yet to be even started production. And so this was a car that we found. We are actually still looking for another car, and we may be back before you again. But so that's the reason. We had originally planned just gas cars, but this hybrid came available. It made sense, and so we wanted to move forward.
Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.14, can I get a motion approving the replacement of the police captain's vehicle, which was severely damaged from an accident on September 1st, 2022, at an approximate cost of $45,000 for base vehicle?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion?
I just have a question, Mr. Neese. You found a 4-wheel drive Tahoe that meets the requirements of the police for this price?
We have a potential, like this is, we've gotten this approval. It may not go through. There's one sitting at the group that does our
Okay.
install at all of the extra equipment. There's a police department that may not take it. And so we were told this is what the cost would be to replace it. And so hopefully what we're going to have is we're counting on the insurance company to do what's the right thing on the car that we had hit. I think I shared pictures with you
Right,
and
but-
you all.
His truck was pretty new.
Yeah, and so we don't know the exact amount, but this covers us from whatever the insurance company, we can buy this car at this price.
Well, this seems $45,000 for a new Tahoe just seems like a very unrealistic deal, but if you got it, good luck.
Trust me, I was looking for a second one.
Good luck.
Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.15. Can I get a motion approving or can I get a motion granting staff permission to invest up to 20% of the general fund and up to 10% of the capital fund in the PLGIT investment fund?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Laycap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.16, consider authorizing staff and solicitor to continue discussions with Crown Castle relative to the potential cell tower at Brookside Park.
So moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese, my understanding, actually, I will just turn this over to you and you can explain what this is.
Yeah, so this is an area of the township that if you've driven down Bryn Mawr Avenue, most likely you've lost cell phone coverage, particularly if you're with AT&T and a couple of the others. And so it has had an impact for our emergency services in that when they're on the cell, they've lost cell coverage. And so we have been approached about this potential. And so we felt like we needed to at least proceed and look at what the possibility is. This would probably be a tower that, you know, normally I don't like the ones that look like trees, but because this would be probably in the wooded area there, it would probably look like a tree. We would go further and start looking at what it would look like as a potential lease. And because it's on township property, you all need to kind of approve the process in addition to like what you would do if it was not on township property. But this, we got to first say, are we even interested from the township's perspective to put it on township?
I think we need to have the negotiation, see what comes of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for.
And any decisions, of course, would be made in public. so
All
everyone will see
decisions would
that.
come back before you in a public forum.
And this is also, in addition to the cell phone towers, this is, I mean, cell phone reception is also with regards to just the safety aspect of it
That's
being a
correct.
dead zone with radios as well. And it doesn't have to do with population increases. It has to do with just the natural contours of the area.
This has been going on before we had the population that we have now.
Understood. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.17, can I get a motion approving a program sponsorship for Garrett Williamson Fall Festival on October 15th, 2022 from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. totaling $250.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Laycap. Is there any board discussion?
I need to abstain from this.
Say it again with your microphone on.
Yep, I need to abstain from this.
And I need to abstain from this vote as well because I'm on their foundation board.
Oh,
So
it's
I
up to
just would, as you take the vote, but I would just ask that both of you that are abstaining, would you make sure you please notify the
Send the letter.
township tomorrow as to the reason why, and so that we can add it to the minutes.
So just so everybody knows, it needs to now be a unanimous vote for this to pass. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries 3-0 with 2 abstentions.
You want a voice vote or no?
Nah, we're good. I think we're
We
fine.
heard you, Ed.
We heard you over there. All right, we'll now move into old business. I have no old business on the agenda. There is nothing for land development approval. There's nothing for resolutions of legislation and action. And we'll move down to board comment. I just have one thing. I know that a lot of people have been asking with regards to Bryn Mawr Avenue and the repaving there. Bryn Mawr Avenue, as we all know, is a state road, which is owned and maintained by PennDOT. I also know that there was I guess what added some interest to it is a flyer was sent out by our state representative's office saying that it was on the list of roads to be done this year. I have been in constant contact with our state representative, Chris Quinn's office regarding this. The same contractor that has been awarded the I-95 project is the same contractor that is doing all the other suburban work. The issue why it's delayed is because there is a crushed stone shortage. And so that slowed down the I-95 project, which then slowed down all the other ones. I have been assured that this is still being done this year. And the contractor that has been awarded it is going to want to make sure they get it done before that window closes, because the way that the PennDOT contracts are written is that they're going to start losing, they'll lose the money. They'll lose the money that they were awarded if they can't get the jobs done. So this is something that's a high priority of Chris Quinn's office. He has been in constant contact with PennDOT. I, in return, have been in constant contact with his office. So for those residents who travel Bromar Avenue, know that help is on the way, and it'll just be hopefully sooner rather than later. Is there any other board comment? We'll now move it over to public comment. If there's anyone who has any public comment on anything, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. We'll hear you.
Alex Skukas, 33 Dunmanning Road. In 1974, a prior iteration of this board passed the town ordinance, which is now chapter 115, peace and good order. And two of the prohibited acts indicated there are that it's unlawful for any person within the township to make any unseemly noise or disturbance to the annoyance of residents nearby. And it's also unlawful to discharge any gun or firearm unless in defense of person or property. These two ordinances on noise and gun discharge are regularly violated from October to March by Aronimink Golf Course on peaceful Sunday afternoons. So at the end of last year's shooting season in April, I contacted the township and said, how does Aronimink get around this? And I was told that the township would look into it, that possibly they had special permission from the board. No such special permission was found over the course of this summer. I was told that Aronimink has taken the position that they are grandfathered in to this 1974 provision. But they don't have any evidence, any proof. I haven't seen the letter that they wrote. I wasn't given it, but their attorney basically said we're grandfathered in. The township has no record of it. So I would request, because we're coming up on October 2nd at 12 o'clock, they're going to start shooting again. And I would request that the township do one of three things. Either publish the special permission that was granted to Aronimink, identify why they're grandfathered in to the 1974 provision, or third, stop those folks from making that noise and discharging those firearms, just like you would me if I did it on my property. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, anyone else? Come on up, Mr. Zahner.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Zahner. I live at 3549 Winding Way. And I wanted to thank you for installing speed humps in St. Albans neighborhood. It's much appreciated. It has calmed traffic down a little bit. I would also like to have an item in an upcoming meeting to install a stop sign at Greer Park or Winding Way Park, and have a speed hump also where the road levels out in place. So if you would please consider the approval of a stop sign you did tonight at 15.6, which is nice. There have been many studies in the past, and I'd like to move forward with traffic calming on Winding Way to make it safer for walkers, runners, and bikers. Thank you.
Thank you. I normally don't do like a public question and answer, but I just want to make sure you're aware of the traffic calming policy the township has. So the Board of Supervisors, and actually that was a question, so I don't know whether you are or not. If you're not, we'll make sure you get a copy of it. But there's a policy on the township website that outlines the process in which neighborhoods need to go through to get speed bumps permanently installed in their neighborhood. The board will not unilaterally come in and start putting speed bumps, because while some people might love them and want them, there's other people in that same neighborhood who despise them and hate them, even though they might be the ones who complain about speeding just as much. So there's actually a policy that's been established. It is a policy that has multiple steps, but it's pretty easy to follow. The first thing is to sit down with Mr. Sharretts and get an idea of whether you can put speed bumps on whatever stretch of road it is that you're looking for, because while it's a township road, there are still requirements that we need to abide by, such as you can't put it on a hill, you can't put it.
I have been speaking with George about.
Okay, so then just the answer to the speed bumps is to go through that policy and take it that way.
Okay.
With regards to the stop sign, I'll speak to the chief with regards to the traffic study. And we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Me again, Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run. In regard to item 15.1, I wanted to thank the board for their extensive questioning and careful deliberation on the request from DPG regarding the sewer capacity. I share your sentiment that they ask for many things from the township, and it's not often reciprocated in terms of them giving things to the township. I think it's also a very fair question and observation that for a request of this magnitude for a landowner to come before you with a lack of written information is a bit presumptuous. When I think of the information that is required of other people, including the EAC, for matters that are much more temporary and have a smaller financial implication, I think your caution and due diligence is entirely appropriate, especially when it seems to me that the decision that was being asked for tonight is something that could affect the township in perpetuity. I mean, the requester said that this was like a temporary request, but I didn't clearly understand like how it would not be temporary if you gave away the capacity, and that might come back in years or decades to haunt the township, that you gave this away and you've cut yourself off from access to that in the future. And it just seems like also presumptuous that if he wanted over $200,000 capacity and he only got 185 to still go ahead with the planning, knowing that he didn't have what he needed. At least that's my uninformed perception of the situation. Thank you for your consideration.
Duly noted. Anyone else from the public? All right, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming out and have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks.